I've been a funeral director at Myers Memorial in New Orleans for 13 years. Most of that time I work normal hours, daytime services, evening visitations. But sometimes you get late-night transports, bodies that need to be moved from hospitals or morgues after hours. It's part of the job. You go alone. You drive carefully. You bring them back. It's never bothered me before. The dead are just bodies. They don't move, don't speak, don't do anything except lie still under a sheet while you transport them from point A to point B. That changed on November 8th. The call came at 10:47 p.m. Charity Hospital. A body ready for pickup. Male, late 60s, natural causes. The family had selected our funeral home. Needed transport tonight so we could begin preparations in the morning for a Saturday service. I took the call. Our other director had gone home. Our transport driver was off. Just me. Standard situation. I'd done solo transports hundreds of times. I prepped the hearse, made sure the gurney was secured, made sure I had paperwork, made sure everything was ready. By 11:15, I was pulling out of our parking lot. Charity Hospital is maybe 20 minutes away. Not far. Easy drive even at night. I arrived at 11:38, went to the morgue entrance, signed the release forms. A technician helped me load the body, sheet covered, already on a transport board. We slid him into the hearse, secured the gurney, closed the door. Drive safe, the tech said. Like always. Like this was routine. I got behind the wheel, started the engine, pulled out of the hospital parking lot. The streets were quiet, late enough that traffic was light. Early enough that the bars hadn't closed. I took St. Charles Avenue, streetlights, familiar route. Nothing unusual. I checked my rearview mirror. Standard practice. You always monitor what's behind you when you're transporting. Make sure the body stays secure. Make sure nothing shifts. The back of the hearse was dark. Just the shape of the gurney. The white sheet covering the body. Everything still. Everything normal. I drove for maybe 5 minutes. Stopped at a red light. Checked the mirror again. The sheet had changed position. Not much, just slightly. Like it had settled differently. Like the body underneath had shifted. Bodies don't shift. Not on secured gurneys, not when you're driving smooth on flat roads. But sometimes fabric moves. Sometimes air conditioning creates air currents that make sheets ripple. Nothing unusual. The light turned green. I drove, checked the mirror again at the next light. The sheet had moved more. The section near the head looked different. Higher. Like it was propped up, I turned on the interior light. Used the mirror to look at the back more carefully. The gurney was still secure, the straps tight. But the sheet definitely looked different. The shape underneath wasn't flat anymore. I convinced myself I was seeing things. That the angle of the mirror distorted the view. That shadows and street light created illusions. I turned off the interior light. Kept driving. 2 blocks later, I checked the mirror again. Something was sitting up in the back of the hearse. Not the body. Not a person. A shape. Dark. Silhouetted against the white sheet. Upright in the passenger area behind the gurney, where nothing should be. My heart stopped. I jerked the wheel. Corrected. My hands were shaking. I looked again, hard, focused. The shape was still there, sitting, motionless, like a passenger, like someone had climbed into the hearse and was riding along without permission. I slammed the brakes. The hearse skidded, stopped hard in the middle of St. Charles Avenue. Good thing traffic was light. Good thing nobody was behind me. I threw the car in park, left the engine running, grabbed my flashlight from the console, got out, ran to the back of the hearse, opened the door. The body lay flat, sheet covering it. Gurney secured exactly as I'd loaded it. No shape sitting up, no passenger, no silhouette. Just the corpse. Still. Dead. Normal. I shined my flashlight into the passenger area. Empty, just carpet and the gurney mounting. No place for anyone to hide. No space where a person could be. I checked the body, pulled back the sheet slightly. The face was peaceful. Gray. Dead. Eyes closed, mouth slightly open. The way bodies look. The way they're supposed to look. I stood there for maybe 2 minutes, breathing hard, trying to understand what I'd seen in the mirror, trying to make it make sense. A car honked, someone wanting to pass. I closed the hearse door, got back in, drove, kept checking the mirror. Nothing, just the body, just the sheet, just normal transport. I arrived at Myers Memorial at 12:14 a.m., pulled into our garage, sat in the driver's seat for a moment. Hands still shaking, heart still pounding. I unloaded the body, took it to the preparation room, transferred it to the table. Everything standard, everything normal. Just another transport, just another body. But I couldn't shake what I'd seen. That shape in the mirror, that silhouette sitting upright. That passenger that shouldn't exist. I went to my office, tried to do paperwork, couldn't focus. Finally went home around 1 a.m. Didn't sleep, just lay in bed replaying what I'd seen. The next morning I came in early. Our security system records everything. Cameras in the parking lot, cameras in the garage, cameras at every entrance. I pulled up last night's footage. Found the timestamp when I'd left for Charity Hospital. 11:15 p.m. The video showed me preparing the hearse, opening the back, checking the gurney. Everything normal. Everything I remembered doing. Then, at 11:22 p.m., 7 minutes after I'd left, something moved in the frame. A shadow. Dark, humanoid, moving from the edge of the parking lot toward the hearse. The hearse I'd already been driving. The hearse that was already gone. But the timestamp was clear. 11:22 p.m., 7 minutes after I'd left. I rewound, watched again. The shadow moved deliberately, walked to where the hearse should be. Should have been parked. Except it wasn't parked there. I'd already driven away. But the shadow reached for something. Opened something. Climbed into something that wasn't visible on the camera. Then the shadow disappeared, like it had entered a vehicle that wasn't there. I checked the timestamp again. 11:22. I'd been driving for 7 minutes by then, halfway to Charity Hospital, miles away from Myers Memorial. But something had climbed into the hearse, 7 minutes after I'd left, 7 minutes before I'd picked up the body. I pulled up the footage from when I returned, 12:14 a.m. The video showed me pulling into the garage, opening the back, unloading the gurney. Normal, standard procedure. But for just a moment, maybe 2 frames, there was a shadow in the back of the hearse. Behind me, behind the gurney, a dark shape, sitting, watching. Then it was gone. Next frame showed just me, just the body, just normal. I called our security company, asked about the cameras, asked if there were malfunctions, technical issues, anything that would explain shadows appearing and disappearing. They ran diagnostics. Everything checked out. Cameras working perfectly. No glitches, no errors. Whatever was on that footage was recorded accurately. I didn't tell anyone what I'd seen. What would I say? That I'd hallucinated a passenger? That security footage showed a shadow climbing into a hearse that wasn't there? That something had ridden with me from the funeral home to the hospital and back? Nobody would believe it. I barely believed it myself, but I made changes. Started doing transports with a partner, even late-night calls, even routine pickups. I always brought someone along, said it was for safety, said it was protocol. Really, I just didn't want to be alone in that hearse. Didn't want to check the rearview mirror and see something sitting behind me. Didn't want to know if that shadow would return. 3 weeks later, we had another late-night transport. Different hospital, different body. But I took someone with me, a young director named Bryce Thibault. He rode shotgun. We loaded the body together. "You want me to drive?" he asked. "No, I've got it." We pulled out of the hospital parking lot. I checked the rearview mirror, just the body, just the sheet, just Bryce in the passenger seat beside me. We drove for maybe 10 minutes. Bryce was looking at his phone. I checked the mirror again. There were 3 shapes in the hearse. The body on the gurney, Bryce beside me, and something behind the gurney, in the passenger area, sitting, watching. I kept driving. Didn't say anything. Didn't want Bryce to think I was losing it. Just watched that 3rd shape in the mirror. That shadow that shouldn't exist. It sat perfectly still. Upright. Like a person. Like it belonged there. Like it had paid for a ticket and earned the right to ride along. We arrived at Myers Memorial, pulled into the garage. I got out fast. Opened the back door, just the body, just the gurney, nothing else. Bryce helped me unload. We took the body inside. He didn't mention anything unusual. Didn't act like he'd seen or felt anything wrong. But when I checked the security footage later that night, there it was again. That shadow. Climbing into the hearse minutes after we'd left. Riding in the back, sitting behind the gurney where no passenger should be. And this time, when we'd arrived and opened the door, the shadow was visible for 3 frames before disappearing. Sitting exactly where I'd seen it in the mirror. Exactly where it shouldn't be. I've done maybe 15 transports since then. Always with a partner, always checking the mirror, always watching the security footage afterward. The shadow appears every time. Climbs in minutes after we leave, rides in the back, sits behind the gurney, watches. Sometimes I see it in the mirror, sometimes I don't. But the cameras always catch it, always show it there, riding along. Patient, quiet, waiting. I don't know what it is. Don't know why it started appearing November 8th. Don't know what it wants or why it chooses the hearse, but I know it's there. Know it rides with us. Know it climbs in when we're not looking and disappears before we can prove it existed. The other directors have started noticing. Started mentioning feeling watched during night transports. Started checking mirrors more often. Started requesting partners even for routine calls. Nobody talks about it directly. Nobody admits what they're seeing. But we all know something's changed. Something rides with us now, something that isn't the bodies we transport, something that chooses to be there, that wants to be there. I still check the security footage, still watch that shadow climb into empty space. Still see it sitting in the back of the hearse on every transport. And I wonder, has it always been there? Have we always carried extra passengers and just never noticed? Or did something change on November 8th? Did something decide it wanted to ride along? Did something find its way into our hearse and decide to stay? I don't know. Probably never will. But I drive differently now. More carefully, more respectfully. Like I'm transporting 2 entities instead of 1. The body on the gurney and the passenger behind it. The one that climbs in when we're not looking. The one that sits in darkness. The one that watches us work and never says a word. The one that's always there. In the mirror. On the cameras. in the back of the hearse, riding along to destinations we choose, for reasons only it understands. I've been a removal technician for Hartley & Sons Funeral Home in Chicago for 9 years. When someone dies in a hospital, nursing home, or private residence, I'm the one who comes to collect them. It's not glamorous work. You arrive, you transfer the body, you transport it to the funeral home. Professional, respectful, quiet. You see death in every form, expected deaths, sudden deaths, bodies that look peaceful, bodies that don't. After 9 years, you develop a kind of detachment. Not coldness, just professional distance. You have to. Otherwise, the work breaks you. But some calls break through anyway. The dispatch came at 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday. Nursing home on the north side. Peaceful passing, natural causes, standard removal. My partner for the night was a new guy named Kyle Ramos. 3 weeks on the job, still nervous around bodies. Still treated every removal like his first. We arrived at Northbrook Care Center at 12:15 a.m. The night supervisor met us at the staff entrance, a tired-looking woman in scrubs. She'd done this before, knew the routine. 3rd floor, room 3114, Mr. Raymond Wolski, 86. Passed around midnight. Family's been notified. They'll come by the funeral home tomorrow. She handed me the death certificate, signed by the on-call physician. Time of death, 11:52 p.m. Cause, cardiac arrest, natural, expected. The kind of death that happens in nursing homes every day. We took the service elevator to the 3rd floor. Wheeled our gurney through the quiet hallways. Most residents were asleep. A few nurses worked at the station. Nobody paid us much attention. This was routine for them too. Room 314 was at the end of the hall. The door was closed. A handwritten note taped to it, awaiting transport. I knocked. Nobody answered. I opened the door. Raymond Wolski lay in the hospital bed. Thin, gray, mouth slightly open, arms at his sides. The sheet pulled up to his chest. A lamp in the corner provided dim light. Everything looked standard, expected, normal. Kyle stayed by the door. "You want me to get the gurney?" "In a minute. Let me verify first." I approached the bed, checked for a pulse at the carotid artery. Nothing. Checked the wrist, nothing. His skin was cool. Not cold yet. He'd only been dead for about 90 minutes. But definitely not warm, not alive. I pulled back the sheet to check for any medical devices, IVs, catheters, anything we'd need to remove before transport. Everything had already been disconnected, clean, ready for removal. "Okay," I said. "Bring the gurney." Kyle left. Came back with our stretcher. We positioned it beside the bed. This is the part that takes practice. Transferring a body from bed to gurney without being disrespectful, without being rough. We use a draw sheet. Slide it under the body. 2 people lift together. Smooth, professional. We got Raymond positioned on the draw sheet. Kyle grabbed one side. I grabbed the other. "On 3, I said. 1, 2, 3. We lifted. Transferred him to the gurney in one smooth motion. Covered him with our transport sheet. Secured the straps. "Good work," I told Kyle. He looked relieved, like he'd passed some kind of test. We wheeled Raymond out of room 314, down the hall, past the nurse's station. Nobody looked up. We'd done this so many times they barely registered our presence anymore. The service elevator was waiting. We rolled the gurney inside. I pressed the button for the ground floor. The doors closed. That's when I felt it. A vibration. Subtle. Like the gurney was humming. like something underneath was generating a frequency. "You feel that?" Kyle asked. "Elevator motor," I said. "Old building, old equipment." But I'd used this elevator dozens of times. Never felt anything like this before. The vibration got stronger. I put my hand on the gurney rail. Could feel it clearly now. Not coming from the floor. Not coming from the elevator itself. Coming from the gurney. From the body on the gurney. Kyle's eyes were wide. "That's not the elevator." I looked at the sheet covering Raymond Wolski. It was still. Not moving. The vibration was subtle. Could be anything. Loose wheel on the gurney, uneven floor, something mechanical. The elevator descended. Second floor, first floor. The sheet shifted. Not much. Just a ripple near the top. Like something underneath had moved, adjusted position. "Did you see that?" Kyle's voice pitched higher. "It's just the movement of the elevator. Bodies settle. Relax. It's normal." But it wasn't normal. Bodies don't move 12 hours after death. Rigor mortis takes time to set in, but Raymond had been dead for 90 minutes. He should be completely still. The elevator reached the ground floor. The doors opened. Before I could push the gurney out, the sheet moved again. Bigger this time. The section covering Raymond's upper body lifted, rose up, like something underneath was sitting up. Kyle stepped back, hit the elevator wall. "Oh God. Oh God." I watched. Couldn't move, couldn't process what I was seeing. The sheet rose higher. The shape underneath clearly visible now. A torso, shoulders, a head. Raymond Wolski was sitting up. Not alive, not conscious. His eyes weren't open. His arms stayed at his sides. But his upper body, from the waist up, lifted off the gurney. Rose to maybe a 45-degree angle. Then held there. Perfectly still. Perfectly balanced. For maybe 5 seconds. Then he fell back. Collapsed. The sheet settled. Flat again. Like nothing had happened. The elevator doors started to close. I shot my arm out. Stopped them, grabbed the gurney, wheeled it out into the hallway. My hands were shaking. My breath came fast. Kyle followed. Pale, shaking. What the hell was that? I don't know. Dead people don't sit up. They don't, I know. We stood in the empty hallway, staring at the gurney, at the sheet covering Raymond Wolski. He lay flat now. Still, normal, like a body should be. I reached out, touched the sheet where his chest would be, felt for warmth, for movement, for anything. The sheet was warm, not body temperature. Warmer than that. Like something underneath had been generating heat. Like energy had been burning. Like something had happened that required effort, exertion. Kyle was backing away. "I'm not getting in the van with that. I'm not. We have a job to do. The job doesn't include transporting bodies that sit up. That move, that..." "He's dead," I said. Tried to make my voice firm, authoritative. We confirmed death in the room. The physician confirmed it. He's been dead for over 90 minutes. What we saw was post-mortem muscle contraction, gas buildup, cadaveric spasm. It's rare, but it happens. I was reciting textbook answers, trying to convince myself as much as Kyle. "That wasn't gas," Kyle said. "That was deliberate. That was..." "Help me get him to the van." We wheeled Raymond Wolski out to our vehicle, loaded him, secured the gurney. I kept my hand on the sheet the entire time, waiting for it to move again, waiting for that vibration, for heat, for anything. Nothing happened. Raymond stayed still. Dead, normal. We drove to Hartley & Sons in silence. Kyle stared out the window. I kept checking the rearview mirror, looking at the gurney in the back, at that sheet-covered shape, making sure it stayed flat, making sure it stayed still. We unloaded Raymond at the funeral home, took him to the prep room, transferred him to the table. I pulled back the sheet to verify condition for the intake log. Raymond Wolski looked exactly as he had in the nursing home. Thin, gray, peaceful, mouth slightly open, nothing unusual, nothing wrong. But when I touched his chest to check for rigor mortis, his skin was warm. Not refrigeration cold, not room temperature, warm, like blood had been flowing, like a heart had been beating. Kyle quit the next morning, called in, said he couldn't do removal work anymore, said what he'd seen had messed him up too much. I didn't try to talk him out of it. I stayed. Because I've been doing this for 9 years. Because one impossible event doesn't erase 9 years of routine. Because I need the paycheck and the benefits and the routine of professional work. But I requested a partner change. Asked to work with someone more experienced. Someone who wouldn't panic. Someone who could help me maintain the illusion that what we'd seen had been normal. Explainable. Medical. I looked up cadaveric spasm. Post-mortem muscle contraction. Gas buildup in the torso. Every possible scientific explanation for a corpse sitting up 90 minutes after death. None of them fit. None of them explained the deliberate movement, the controlled rise and fall, the warmth afterward. I called the nursing home, asked about Raymond Wolski's last hours. The supervisor said he'd been unresponsive for days, unconscious, dying slowly. Then at 11:52 p.m., he'd opened his eyes, sat up in bed, looked around the room, then laid back down and died. She said it happens sometimes. A final moment of clarity. A last surge of energy before the end. Terminal lucidity. Not uncommon in hospice care. But Raymond had been dead for 90 minutes when he sat up on our gurney. Had been cold, had been without pulse, had been gone. And then, in that elevator, he'd sat up again, like he'd forgotten to finish something, like he needed one more moment, one more chance, or like some part of him hadn't accepted it yet, hadn't understood it was over, hadn't let go. I still work removals, still respond to nursing homes and hospitals and private residences, still transfer bodies with professional respect and quiet efficiency. But now I watch the gurneys, listen for vibrations, check the sheets for movement, put my hand on the chest afterward to feel for warmth. Because I understand now that death isn't always immediate, that some part of us keeps trying, keeps fighting, keeps sitting up even when the body's been dead for hours. And sometimes, in elevators or hallways or the back of transport vans, that part gets one more chance, one more moment. One more attempt to finish whatever it couldn't finish before. Raymond Wolski sat up twice. Once at death. Once 90 minutes later. Both times he laid back down. Both times he let go. I hope he's finished now. I hope he's gone. I hope whatever made him sit up in that elevator finally found peace. But the sheet was warm. And warmth means energy. And energy means something was still there, still trying, still not quite ready to be transported away. I've been a nurse at Frimrich Willis Knighton Medical Center in Shreveport for 8 years. Started in pediatrics, transferred to the cardiac unit 3 years ago. Night shift, 11 to 7. It's quieter than days. Fewer visitors, fewer distractions. Just you and the patients and the steady beeping of monitors in the dark. Every unit has its quirks. Equipment that malfunctions. Rooms that always seem colder than others. Call buttons that stick. You learn to work around them. But room 4 was different. I first heard about it during orientation. The charge nurse, a woman named Phyllis Comeau, who'd worked cardiac for 22 years, pulled me aside after the unit tour. "Room 4 has issues," she said. "Call button goes off around 3 a.m. most nights, usually when it's empty. Just reset it and move on." "Electrical problem?" I asked. "Probably. Maintenance has been up there a dozen times. Never find anything wrong." She paused. "Just don't answer it at night if the room's unoccupied. Not worth the walk." It seemed like reasonable advice. Every hospital has glitchy equipment. You learn which IV pumps are temperamental, which monitors need extra calibration, which call buttons are oversensitive. Room 4's call button went off every few nights. Always around 3 a.m., always when the room was empty. I'd see it flash at the nurse's station, the light blinking insistently, and I'd press the reset button without getting up. The light would stop. Problem solved. The other nurses did the same thing. We all knew Room 4's routine. Knew not to assign patients there if we could help it. Knew to ignore the call button when it acted up. But we had a full unit on November 12th. Every room occupied. A new admission came in at 2 a.m., a man with unstable angina, chest pain that wouldn't resolve. We had to put him somewhere. "Room 4's available," I said. Phyllis shook her head. "Put him in 7. We can double up. 7 already has a patient. 4 is empty. Trust me, use 7. But 7's patient was a woman recovering from bypass surgery who needed quiet. Sharing a room wasn't fair to her. So I put the new admission, a man named Roger Thibault, 62, overweight, smoker, in room 4. He settled in fine. Got him on the monitors, started an IV, gave him nitro. His chest pain eased. Vitals stabilized. By 3 a.m., he was sleeping. That's when his call button went off. I saw it flash at the nurse's station. Room 4. I figured Roger had woken up, needed something. Pain medication maybe, or the bathroom. I walked down the hall, pushed open the door. The room was dark, except for the green glow of the heart monitor. Roger was asleep, snoring softly. The oxygen tube in his nose fogged with each breath. But the call button light was on, the red light above his bed indicating someone had pressed the button. Except Roger's hands were at his sides. Not near the button, not moving. I pressed reset. The light went off. I turned to leave. Then I heard it. A voice. Female. Coming from the speaker beside the bed, the intercom that connects to the nurse's station. "Tell him I'm not done." I froze. The words were clear, distinct. A woman's voice, older, raspy, like someone who'd smoked for decades. I looked at Roger, still asleep, still snoring. I pressed the intercom button. "This is the nurse's station. Did someone call?" Static. Then that voice again, clearer now. "Tell him I'm not done." My skin went cold. I checked the room, no one else there. Just Roger. Just me. Just that voice coming from the speaker. "Who are you talking about?" I asked. No response. Just static. I left the room, walked quickly back to the nurse's station. Phyllis was at the computer, charting. "Did you just use the intercom?" I asked. "No. Why?" "Someone spoke through the intercom in room 4. A woman." Phyllis's expression changed, went very still. "What did she say?" "Tell him I'm not done." I paused. "Who is she talking about?" Phyllis didn't answer right away. She stared at the monitor wall, the screen showing every patient's vitals. Room 4's monitor displayed Roger's steady heartbeat, 72 BPM, normal sinus rhythm. "Room 4 used to be a woman's room," Phyllis said quietly. "About 6 years ago, before you started here. Her name was Dorothy Lackney, 71, advanced heart failure. She was dying, we all knew it. Her family knew it. What happened? Her son was driving in from Texas. She kept asking about him, kept saying she needed to tell him something, kept fighting to stay awake. Phyllis's voice got quieter. He was supposed to arrive at 6 a.m. She coded at 2:47. We worked on her for 18 minutes. Called it at 3:05. Her son never got to see her. He walked in at 3:20, 15 minutes too late. Phyllis looked at me. She died in room 4. I felt something cold move through my chest. The call button started going off after that? About a month later, always at 3 a.m., always when the room's empty. Phyllis turned back to her charting. Maintenance says there's nothing wrong with the wiring. The building's only 12 years old. Everything's up to code. I wanted to ask more questions, but my other patients needed attention. I made rounds, checked vitals, administered medications, tried not to think about the voice in room 4. At 4:30 a.m., Roger Thibaud's monitor alarm went off. I ran to room 4. He was awake, clutching his chest, gasping. "Can't breathe," he wheezed. "Pressure, can't." I hit the code button. The team came running. We worked on him for 37 minutes, gave him everything, every drug, every intervention, but his heart wouldn't stabilize. The rhythm deteriorated. Ventricular fibrillation, then a systole. Dr. Rashad called it at 5:11 a.m. I covered Roger's body, logged the time of death, called his wife. She arrived at 6, cried in the hallway, asked if he'd said anything before he died. I told her he'd been in pain but stable, that the cardiac event came suddenly, that we'd done everything we could. I didn't tell her about the voice, about the warning I'd heard and ignored. The next night, I was assigned to the step-down unit, room 12. A woman recovering from a mild heart attack. Stable. Low risk. I checked on her at 2:30 a.m. Vitals good. Sleeping peacefully. At 2:58 a.m., room 4's call button went off. I was 2 halls away, but I saw it on the monitor, the red light flashing. Room 4, empty, no patient assigned. I walked to the cardiac unit. The hallway was quiet. Most patients sleeping, just the usual sounds. Monitors beeping, ventilators cycling. The hum of medical equipment. I stood outside room 4. The door was closed. The call light still flashing. I should have walked away. Should have reset it from the nurse's station. But I needed to understand. Needed to know if what I'd heard was real. I opened the door. The room was dark. Empty bed. No patient. But the heart monitor was on. That's impossible. The monitors only activate when you connect the leads, when someone's wearing them. They don't just turn on by themselves. But room 4's monitor was glowing green in the darkness, and it showed a flat line. 0 beats per minute. The alarm muted somehow. Just that straight line across the screen. I approached the monitor, reached to turn it off. The intercom crackled. "Tell him I'm not done." The same voice, Dorothy Lackney's voice. I was sure now. "Tell who?" I asked. My voice shook. "Who do you need to tell?" Static, then, "My son, tell him I'm not done. Tell him." The monitor alarm suddenly blared. The flat line jumped, showed a single beat, then flatlined again, then another beat. Irregular. Wrong. I backed toward the door. The intercom crackled again, but this time it was just static. White noise. The monitor continued its irregular pattern. Flatline, beat, flatline, beat, like a heart trying to start and failing. I left the room, closed the door, reset the call button from the nurse's station. At exactly 3:00 a.m., the code alarm went off in the step-down unit. Room 12, The woman I'd checked 30 minutes earlier. The stable patient. Low risk. I ran. The team responded. We worked on her for 42 minutes. Dr. Rashad called it at 3:42 a.m. 2 patients. 2 cardiac events. Both in rooms near room 4. Both within 24 hours of Dorothy Lackney's voice on the intercom. I went to Phyllis after my shift, told her everything. The voice. The monitor turning on by itself. The flat line. The patients who died. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she sighed. Dorothy's son visits sometimes, she said. He comes by on the anniversary of her death. Stands outside room 4 for a few minutes. Never goes in. Never speaks to anyone. Just stands there. Does he know about the call button? I don't think so. What would we tell him? That his mother's ghost is trying to reach him? Phyllis shook her head. He already carries enough guilt. What did she need to tell him? I don't know. She never said. Just kept asking for him. Kept saying she needed to talk to him. That it was important. Phyllis pulled up something on her computer. He left his number with us, in case, I don't know, in case anything changed. She's dead. Nothing's going to change. Isn't it already changing? Phyllis wrote down a number on a sticky note, handed it to me. Maybe he needs to know she's still trying. I kept the number. Carried it in my pocket for 3 days. Didn't call, didn't know what I'd say. Then, room 4's call button went off again. 3 a.m., room empty. This time, I answered it. Stood in the doorway, waited. The intercom crackled. Tell him I'm not done. What aren't you done with? I asked. What do you need to tell him? Static. Silence. Then, very quietly, tell him I forgive him. The intercom went dead. The call button stopped flashing. The room went completely dark and silent. I called Dorothy Lackney's son the next morning, told him I was a nurse at Willis Knighton, that I'd worked with his mother's care team, that I had a message for him. He was quiet for a long time. Then, what message? She said to tell you she forgives you. More silence. I heard him breathing, heard something that might have been crying. Thank you, he whispered. Then he hung up. Room 4's call button hasn't gone off since. The monitor doesn't turn on by itself. The intercom stays silent. We still avoid assigning patients there when we can. Old habits, old fears. But when we do use it, nothing happens. No voices, no warnings, no flat lines at 3 a.m. Whatever Dorothy Lackney needed to say, she said it. Whatever she was holding on to, she let it go. But I think about her sometimes. About how she fought to stay alive long enough to see her son. How she failed. How she stayed anyway, trapped in room 4, trying to deliver a message that took 6 years to finally reach him. And I wonder what he'd done. What he needed forgiveness for. Why that message was important enough to keep her here in this room, pressing a call button that no one would answer for 6 years until someone finally listened. I work nights still. Walk past room 4 every shift. The door stays closed most nights. The call button dark and silent. But sometimes, around 3 a.m., I stop outside that door. Listen. And I wonder if there are other messages waiting. Other voices trying to reach people who never got to hear what needed to be said. Other rooms where the call button flashes and no one answers. Because some messages don't die when we do. Some words are too important to let go, and some people wait forever to say I forgive you. Even when forever means being trapped in an empty room, pressing a button, hoping someone will finally listen. I've been an ER nurse at Oxnard LSU Health in Shreveport for 12 years. I work the night shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. I've seen trauma, overdoses, heart attacks, strokes, gunshot wounds, every kind of emergency that walks through those doors or arrives by ambulance in the middle of the night. You develop instincts working nights. You learn to read vitals before the monitor catches up. You learn which patients are going to make it and which ones are already gone. But their bodies haven't figured it out yet. But damn, nothing in 12 years prepared me for Marcus Webb. The first time I saw him was a Tuesday. October 17th, we weren't busy, just 3 patients in the ER. A kid with a broken arm, an elderly woman with chest pain that turned out to be indigestion, a drunk sleeping it off in Bay 4. The ambulance came in at 1:47 a.m. I heard the doors open, heard the paramedics calling out vitals as they wheeled the gurney through. Male, approximately 45. Cardiac arrest, found unresponsive at a gas station on Line Avenue. Bystander CPR initiated. We've been doing compressions for 8 minutes. No pulse, no respirations. Dr. Klein took the lead. I assisted. We moved the patient to Bay 1, started the protocol, compressions, ventilation, epinephrine, shocking, everything by the book. I glanced at his face while we worked. White male, mid-40s like the paramedics said. Thin, unshaven, dark hair going gray at the temples. He wore a faded Saints jersey, jeans, work boots, and a tattoo on his left forearm. An anchor with a rope wound around it. Simple black ink. The kind you get at a walk-in shop for $50. We worked on him for 26 minutes. Followed protocol. Did everything we could. But he never came back. No pulse, no rhythm, no response. Dr. Klein called it at 2:13 a.m. Time of death, 2:13, he said. His voice was flat, tired. We lose patients. It happens. You can't save everyone. I covered the body, checked his pockets for ID, found a wallet, driver's license inside. Marcus Webb, age 46. Address on Jefferson Page Road. I logged everything, filled out the death certificate, signed it, sent the body to the morgue, called the number listed as his emergency contact, a woman who answered on the 4th ring, voice thick with sleep. I told her Mr. Webb had passed away. She cried, asked what happened. I gave her the standard explanation, cardiac arrest. We did everything we could. She could come in the morning to handle arrangements, standard procedure. I'd done it 100 times. I finished my shift at 7, went home, slept. Came back that night at 11 for another round. Wednesday, October 18th. Busier than Tuesday. 5 patients already waiting when I clocked in. A laceration needing stitches, possible appendicitis, migraine, panic attack, alcohol poisoning. We cleared them by 1:30 a.m. Things quieted down. I was restocking Bay 1 when I heard the doors open again. Ambulance. Paramedics wheeling in a gurney. Male, approximately 45. Cardiac arrest, found unresponsive at a Chevron station on Line Avenue. Bystander CPR in progress. We've been doing compressions for 9 minutes. No pulse, no respirations. The words hit me like cold water. Line Avenue, cardiac arrest, mid-40s. I walked to the gurney, looked at the patient's face. Marcus Webb, same face. Same thin build, same dark hair with gray at the temples, same faded Saints jersey, same jeans, same work boots, same anchor tattoo on his left forearm. My hands went numb. I stood there staring while Dr. Klein started barking orders, while the team moved the body to Bay 1, while they started compressions again. Nurse Rodriguez, I need you. Dr. Klein's voice snapped me back. I moved automatically, grabbed the crash cart, started the IV, administered epinephrine. But my brain was screaming that this was wrong. This was impossible. This patient had died 24 hours ago. I'd signed his death certificate. I'd sent his body to the morgue. But here he was. Same tattoo, same face, same everything. We worked on him for 28 minutes. Same protocol, same efforts, same outcome. He never came back. Dr. Klein called it at 2:13 a.m. Time of death, 2:13. The same time. Exactly the same time as yesterday. I stared at the clock, at the body, at Dr. Klein, who was already moving on to the next thing, already forgetting this patient because we lose people and you can't dwell on it or the job will break you. But I couldn't move. I stood there beside the body, looking at Marcus Webb's face, at that anchor tattoo. You need to log it, Dr. Klein said. Death certificate, next of kin notification. You know the drill. I checked his pockets, found a wallet, driver's license inside. Marcus Webb, age 46, Jefferson Page Road. Same name, same address, same everything. I went to the computer, pulled up the system, searched for Marcus Webb, found yesterday's death certificate, my signature at the bottom. Time of death, 2:13 a.m., October 17th. I created a new entry, filled in the same information, signed it. 2 death certificates, 2 Marcus Webbs. Both died at 2:13 a.m., both with my signature. I called the emergency contact number. Same woman answered. Same thick with sleep voice. Hello? Ma'am, this is Oxner LSU Health ER. I'm calling about Marcus Webb. Silence. Then, you called me last night. You told me he was dead. I was there this morning. I identified his body. They took him to Summers Funeral Home. My mouth went dry. Ma'am, is this some kind of sick joke? My husband is dead. I buried him this afternoon. She hung up. I stood there holding the phone, shaking. I walked back to Bay 1. The body was still there. Still Marcus Webb. Still real. I lifted his arm, looked at the anchor tattoo, touched it. The skin was cold, real, dead. I went to my supervisor, a woman named Brenda Hebert. 20 years at Oxner. Seen everything. I told her what happened. Told her about the 2 Marcus Webbs, the 2 death certificates. The same time of death. She looked at me with concern. The kind of concern you give someone who's cracking under pressure. Honey, you've been working double shifts. You're exhausted. Sometimes our brains, I'm not confused. Look at the system. Look at the death certificates. She pulled up the records, stared at the screen. Her expression changed. This is a system error, she said slowly. Someone entered the same patient twice. Probably a tech doing data entry. I'll flag it for AT. It's not a data entry error. I saw him die. Twice. Same man, same tattoo, same everything. Brenda put her hand on my shoulder. Carmen, listen to me. You need to go home. Take a few days. Get some rest. We've all had nights where things blur together, where patients start to look the same. It's normal. But it wasn't normal. It was Marcus Webb. Dead twice. Same time, same place. I went to the morgue, told them I needed to verify a body, gave them yesterday's case number. The attendant checked his log. That body was released to Summers Funeral Home this morning. Family pickup. Can you show me the intake photo? He pulled it up on his screen, turned the monitor toward me. Marcus Webb, anchor tattoo visible on his left arm. Date stamp, October 17th, 2:47 a.m. And tonight's intake? I asked. He checked. We received a Marcus Webb about an hour ago. Same name, Different date of birth listed, though. Probably a typo. Can I see him? You're not authorized. Please, I need to see him. He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. Led me to the cold storage units, pulled out drawer 17. Marcus Webb lay under a white sheet. I lifted it, looked at his face, at his arm. Same anchor tattoo, same placement, same size, same ink quality. I took a photo with my phone. Then I went back upstairs, pulled up the intake photo from yesterday, compared them side by side. Identical. Down to every detail. Every line of the tattoo, every shadow on his face. The same man had died twice. I called the number for Summers Funeral Home, left a message asking about Marcus Webb, asking when his service was, asking if I could speak to the family. They called me back the next morning. The director's voice was professional, sympathetic. Mr. Webb's service was this morning. Private burial at Forest Park Cemetery. The family requested no visitors. Can you tell me, Tom, was there anything unusual about the body? Long pause. Ma'am, I'm not sure what you're asking. Did he have a tattoo? An anchor on his left forearm? Another pause. I can't discuss details about the deceased. Privacy regulations. I was his nurse. I need to know. Then you already know. If you were his nurse, you saw the body. He hung up. I drove to Forest Park Cemetery that afternoon, found the fresh grave, mound of red dirt covered with flowers, headstone not placed yet. Just a temporary marker. Marcus Webb, 1978 to 2024. I stood there for maybe 20 minutes, staring at the dirt, trying to understand. That night I called in sick. First time in 3 years. I couldn't go back to that ER. Couldn't risk seeing Marcus Webb come through those doors again. But I checked the system from home, logged in remotely. Searched for any new admissions. Thursday, October 19th. No Marcus Webb. Friday, October 20th. No Marcus Webb. Saturday, October 21st. No Marcus Webb. I started to relax. Started to believe maybe it had been stress, exhaustion, some kind of temporal confusion where I'd mixed up two different patients. But Tuesday came around again. October 24th, 1 week after the first Marcus Webb died. I got a call from Brenda at 2:30 a.m. Carmen, I know you're off, but I need you to come in. We have a situation. What kind of situation? Just come in, please. I drove to Oxnard, went straight to the ER. Brenda met me at the nurse's station. Her face was pale. There's a body in Bay 1, she said quietly. Came in an hour ago, cardiac arrest. We couldn't save him. Why did you need me? She handed me a death certificate. Unsigned, waiting for my signature. I looked at the name, Marcus Webb. He came in at 1:47 a.m., Brenda said. Found at a gas station on Line Avenue. Time of death called at 2:13 a.m. I walked to Bay 1, pulled back the sheet. Marcus Webb, anchor tattoo on his left forearm, 3 times. He'd died 3 times. Same time, same place, same tattoo. I checked my phone. Looked at the photo I'd taken in the morgue. Compared it to the body in front of me. Identical. I'm quitting, I said. Brenda didn't argue. Didn't try to convince me to stay. She just nodded. Like she understood, like maybe she'd seen things too that couldn't be explained. I signed the death certificate. My 3rd signature on 3 certificates for the same man. Then I walked out. Drove home. Never went back. That was 6 days ago. I've been checking the obituaries. Checking the system remotely. Checking to see if Marcus Webb dies again next Tuesday. Because I think he will. I think he'll keep dying. Every Tuesday, 2:13 a.m., Line Avenue, cardiac arrest, anchor tattoo. And I think eventually someone else will be his nurse. Someone else will sign his death certificate. Someone else will realize he's died before and will keep dying, and there's no explanation and no way to stop it. I don't know what Marcus Webb did. Don't know why he's trapped in this loop. Don't know if he's aware of it. If he wakes up every Tuesday, knowing he's going to die at 2:13 a.m. If he feels it happening over and over. But I know I can't be there when he comes back. Can't sign another certificate. Can't watch him die again. Because some deaths don't end. Some people don't stay dead. And some nights repeat themselves whether we're ready or not. It's Tuesday now, October 31st. Almost 2 a.m. I'm not sleeping. I'm sitting at my kitchen table, watching the clock, waiting for 2:13, and wondering if somewhere on Line Avenue, Marcus Webb is taking his last breath again, and again, and again. I've operated cremation equipment for 16 years. Started at Willamette Valley Memorial in Eugene right after my certification. It's technical work, precise work. You monitor temperatures, maintain equipment, follow strict protocols. The state regulates everything: how hot the retort burns, how long, what you can and cannot do. Bodies burn at predictable rates. Bone density, body mass, moisture content. You learn to calculate timing. An average cremation takes 2 to 3 hours at 1700 degrees. Sometimes more, sometimes less. But it's consistent, reliable, scientific. Until Vincent Holloway. The paperwork came through on a Thursday morning in late November. Standard death certificate, natural causes, heart failure. Vincent Holloway, age 73. No autopsy required. No complications. The funeral home delivered him that afternoon in a standard cremation container, cardboard, combustible, regulation compliant. I scheduled him for the evening shift. We had 2 other cremations that day. Both went normally. By 8 p.m., I was ready to process Mr. Holloway. I checked the retort. Preheated to operating temperature, 1700 degrees Fahrenheit. The ceramic chamber glowed orange through the viewing port. Everything nominal. I positioned the container on the loading door. Pressed the sequence. The hydraulics engaged. The door opened. The container slid inside. I closed the door, locked it, activated the burners. Through the viewing port, I watched the cardboard ignite. Standard. The flames spread across the container, yellow-orange, hot, consuming. Then they dimmed. Not slowly, suddenly. Like someone had turned down a dimmer switch. The bright orange flames dulled to blue, then almost went out completely. I checked the temperature gauge. 1700 degrees, steady. But the flames inside looked weak, struggling. I increased the gas flow. The burners responded. I heard them roar louder, felt the heat increase. The temperature gauge climbed to 1800. But the flames stayed dim, blue, barely touching the container. I've processed over 4,000 cremations. I've never seen flames behave like this. Fire needs fuel, oxygen, heat. All 3 were present. The flames should have been consuming everything. Instead, they looked like they were being pushed back, suppressed. Like something inside that chamber was fighting them. The temperature in the control room dropped. I felt it immediately. My breath fogged. I looked at the thermostat, 68 degrees. Normal. But I could see my breath. I walked to the viewing port. Put my hand near the glass. It was cold. Not warm, not hot. Cold. Like ice. That's impossible. The retort runs at 1700 degrees. The observation glass is triple-layered ceramic. It should be radiating heat, should be too hot to touch. But frost was forming on the inside surface. I watched it spread, delicate crystalline patterns growing across the glass. In a chamber burning at 1800 degrees, I shut down the burners. Hit the emergency stop. The flames died immediately. The hydraulics engaged. The door opened. Cold air poured out. Not hot. Cold. Like opening a freezer. Steam billowed into the control room, condensation from the temperature difference. The container sat on the loading tray. Partially burned. The cardboard blackened and charred around the edges, but largely intact. And inside, Vincent Holloway looked untouched. His body hadn't burned, hadn't even been damaged by the heat. His skin looked normal, his hair unsinged, his clothing, a simple hospital gown, not even scorched. I closed the door, checked the equipment, ran diagnostics. Everything showed normal. Gas pressure good, temperature sensors calibrated, burner function optimal. I called my supervisor, a man named Dale Pritchard, 28 years in the business. He answered on the second ring. "We have a problem," I said. "The Holloway cremation failed." "Equipment malfunction?" "No, equipment's fine. The body won't burn." Silence. Then, "What do you mean, won't burn?" "I mean the flames dimmed. The chamber went cold. Frost formed on the observation glass." "That's not possible. I'm looking at it right now." Dale arrived 30 minutes later. I showed him everything. The frost on the glass, still visible, though melting now that the burners were off. The partially burned container, the intact body. He examined Vincent Holloway through the viewing port, checked the equipment, ran the same diagnostics I had. "Try again," he said finally. "Sometimes you get moisture issues, body fat content, things that interfere with combustion. Give it another go." I repositioned the container, closed the door, activated the burners. The same thing happened. Flames ignited, burned normally for maybe 30 seconds, then dimmed to weak blue flickers. Temperature gauge read 1800 degrees, but the flames looked like they were dying. And the cold came back, stronger this time. The control room temperature dropped so fast, I could see frost forming on the equipment, on the computer monitors, on the metal surfaces. Dale stood beside me, watching, his breath fogging in the freezing air. "Shut it down," he said quietly. I did. Emergency stop. Door open. Cold air pouring out again. Vincent Holloway still intact, still untouched. Like the fire couldn't reach him. Dale pulled out his phone, called someone, spoke in low tones, hung up. "We're done for tonight," he said. "We'll try again tomorrow morning, first thing." "What's happening?" "I don't know. But this isn't the first time. You've seen this before?" He didn't answer directly, just looked at the viewing port, at Vincent Holloway's body inside. Some bodies resist. I don't know why. I don't know how. But sometimes they resist. We locked up. Left Vincent Holloway in the retort. Turned off the cooling systems to let the chamber return to room temperature overnight. I went home. Couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about those flames. The way they dimmed. The cold. The frost in an 1800-degree chamber. I researched Vincent Holloway, found his obituary online. Born 1951, died November 2024, survived by 2 daughters, worked as an accountant, member of Sacred Heart Catholic Church. Nothing unusual, nothing that explained what I'd witnessed. But there was a photo. Vincent in his 60s, smiling, standing outside a church, and around his neck, visible in the photo, a silver chain. A crucifix. I arrived at the crematorium at 6 a.m. Dale was already there. We prepared the retort, preheated it, everything by the book. At 7 a.m., with the sun just coming up, we tried again. I activated the burners, watched through the viewing port. The flames ignited, bright, hot, orange. And this time they didn't dim, they burned, consumed. The container caught immediately. The fire spread. Normal combustion, normal temperature, normal everything. The cold didn't come back. The frost didn't form. The flames did exactly what they were supposed to do. 2 hours and 40 minutes later, the cremation was complete. Standard timing, standard process. Like nothing had been wrong. I opened the retort, used the rake to pull the remains onto the cooling tray. Bone fragments, ash, everything you'd expect. But something caught the light. Something that didn't belong. I leaned closer, used the rake to move the ash aside. A hand, intact, unburned. Still complete with skin and tissue. The fingers curled, clutching something, a rosary. Wooden beads. A silver crucifix. Held in the unburned hand like Vincent Holloway was still praying. I stepped back. My hands were shaking. Dale, you need to see this. He came over, looked at what I'd found. His face went very pale. Check the personal effects inventory, he said. I pulled up the paperwork, read through the list of items that came with Vincent Holloway's body. Watch, removed. Wedding ring, removed. Hospital gown, present. No other items listed. No rosary. Where did this come from? I asked. Dale stared at the unburned hand, at the rosary clutched in the fingers. He brought it himself. That's not possible. We inventory everything. The funeral home strips the body of all personal items before delivery. That's protocol. Then how is it here? I didn't have an answer, because there was no answer that made sense. The rosary wasn't listed, wasn't documented, shouldn't exist. But Vincent Holloway was holding it. His hand unburned in a retort that had consumed everything else at 1700 degrees. Dale made calls, contacted the funeral home. They confirmed no rosary had been with the body. Confirmed they'd followed protocol, removed all jewelry and personal items. We contacted Vincent's daughters, asked about the rosary. They said their father had been buried with his mother's rosary 30 years ago, had placed it in her casket at her funeral, hadn't owned one since. His mother's rosary, buried in 1994, in a grave 300 miles away. But here it was, in Vincent Holloway's hand, unburned, impossible. I processed the remains, separated the bone fragments from the ash, ground them to consistent texture per protocol. Placed them in the urn the family had selected. But the hand, the unburned hand, I photographed it, documented it, then cremated it separately, alone, with witnesses. It burned normally. No resistance, no cold, no frost, just standard combustion. 2 hours, 1700 degrees. The rosary burned too, wood and silver turning to ash, like whatever had been protecting it was gone. Dale retired 3 months later. Didn't give much notice, just said he was done. Said 16 years was long enough for him. I didn't argue. Didn't ask why. I understood. Because some things you see in this job stay with you. Some bodies don't burn the way they should. Some resist, fight back, hold on to something even after death. Vincent Holloway clutched his mother's rosary. A rosary buried 3 decades ago. A rosary that somehow found its way back to him. That protected him, even from fire, until dawn. Until whatever he was waiting for was finished. I still operate the crematorium, still process bodies, still follow protocol. But now I watch more carefully during night cremations. Watch for flames that dim, for cold that shouldn't exist, for frost forming on glass that should be radiating heat. Because I understand now that death isn't always final. That some bonds don't break. That some promises, even ones made 30 years ago when you place a rosary in your mother's casket, still hold. And that sometimes, when you die holding on to something important enough, you don't let go. Not until you're ready. Not until the sun comes up and whatever you were holding on to finally finds peace. I found out later from one of Vincent's daughters that he'd promised his mother he'd see her again. That he'd told her at her deathbed. That he'd hold her rosary when his time came. That he'd bring it with him. She'd laughed. Said that's not how it works. Said the rosary would stay with her. But promises have weight. Even impossible ones. Especially impossible ones. And Vincent Holloway kept his promise. Somehow. Impossibly. He brought his mother's rosary with him when he died. Held it tight. Wouldn't let go. Wouldn't let anything. Not fire. Not protocol. Not the laws of physics. Take it from him until he was ready. Until dawn. Until peace. I've worked at Cascade Memorial Crematory in Portland for 7 years. It's a small operation. Just me and the owner, a man named Roger Brennan. I handle the technical side, equipment maintenance, temperature monitoring, processing. Roger deals with families, paperwork, logistics. We average 8 to 10 cremations a week. Steady work, quiet work. The kind of work where nothing surprises you anymore. Until April 19th. The body came in that Tuesday morning. Standard transfer from a local funeral home. The deceased was a woman named Patricia Kemp, age 68. Died of complications from pneumonia. The paperwork was complete. Medical examiner had signed off. Family had approved cremation. Everything routine. I scheduled her for early afternoon. We had 2 other cremations that day, but Patricia was priority. The family wanted the ashes by Thursday for a memorial service. I preheated the retort at noon. By 1 p.m., the chamber had reached operating temperature. 1,600 degrees Fahrenheit. The ceramic walls glowed orange through the viewing port. Standard. Expected. I positioned Patricia's container on the loading mechanism. Pressed the sequence. The hydraulics hummed. The door opened. The container slid inside. I closed the door, locked it, activated the primary burners. Through the viewing port, I watched the combustion begin. The cardboard ignited. Flames spread. Yellow-orange, consuming. Everything proceeding normally. I returned to the control station. That's where I monitor everything. Temperature, gas flow, combustion efficiency. We have safety protocols, state regulations. You don't just load a body and walk away. You watch. You document. The control station has 3 monitors. The first shows temperature and pressure readings. The second displays gas flow and burner status. The third is the thermal camera. That's the one that shows you what's actually happening inside the chamber. It's an infrared system, reads heat signatures, shows you the combustion pattern in real time, helps you verify complete and efficient cremation. Required equipment, expensive equipment. Roger spent $15,000 on that camera system 3 years ago. I glanced at the thermal monitor 40 minutes into the cremation. Standard check. Just verifying the combustion pattern looked normal. The screen showed the expected heat signature. Bright white-yellow core where the body was. Orange surrounding it. Red at the edges. Normal gradient. Normal distribution. Then the pattern changed. The white-yellow core separated. Divided into distinct shapes. 2 bright spots at the top. A vertical line below them. A curved line at the bottom. Eyes, nose, mouth, a face. Clear as anything. staring directly at the camera. Not a vague pattern, not a trick of light and shadow. A face, with features, with definition. Looking at me through the thermal camera from inside a 1600-degree chamber. I stood up, stepped closer to the monitor. The face stayed stable, didn't shift, didn't blur, just stared. The eyes, two bright white spots, seemed to track my movement. My heart was pounding. I reached for the radio to call Roger. Then the face moved. The mouth, that curved line of heat, opened, widened, like it was smiling, like it was pleased, I'd noticed. The thermal camera went black. Complete failure. The screen showed no signal in white letters. The temperature readouts on the other monitors were fine. The gas flow normal. Everything functional except the thermal camera. I checked the connections, rebooted the system. Nothing. The camera was dead. I went to the viewing port, looked through the thick ceramic glass. Inside, the cremation continued normally. Flames consuming, orange glow. Standard combustion pattern, nothing visible that looked like a face. But the thermal camera had showed me something that couldn't exist. A face made of heat, looking at me, smiling. I logged the camera failure, made a note to call the equipment service company. Tried to focus on the other monitors, temperature steady, gas flow normal, everything proceeding as expected. But I kept thinking about that face, about how clear it had been, about how it had moved, smiled. The cremation cycle completed at 3:17 p.m. 2 hours and 17 minutes, standard timing. I let the chamber cool for 20 minutes, then opened the door. The heat sensors, 3 of them mounted inside the retort, were dead. Their LED indicators dark, not glowing, not functioning, like they'd been burned out. But these sensors are rated to 1800 degrees. They're designed to withstand the exact environment they're in. I made a note. Another equipment failure. 2 in 1 day. Unusual, but not impossible. Electronics fail. Components degrade. It happens. I used the rake to pull the remains onto the cooling tray. Bone fragments, ash, everything you'd expect from a completed cremation. I let them cool for another 30 minutes, then began processing. That's when I saw it. The ash wasn't distributed randomly like it usually is. It had formed a pattern, not a vague shape, not something you had to squint at and imagine. A clear, distinct pattern. A smile, curved, wide, like someone grinning. The darker ash formed the outline. The lighter ash filled the space. A smile, maybe 8 inches across, formed naturally in the remains. Impossible, but there. I stared at it for maybe 5 minutes, just looking, trying to make it into something else, trying to convince myself it was random. Coincidence. Pattern recognition doing what human brains do, finding faces in clouds, seeing meaning in chaos. But it wasn't random. It was too clear, too deliberate, too similar to what I'd seen on the thermal camera. That smiling mouth, opening, widening. I took a photo with my phone, documented it, then disturbed the ash. Broke up the pattern, started the processing, separating bone fragments, grinding them to consistent texture per protocol. My hands were shaking. I couldn't stop thinking about the thermal camera, about that face watching me, about the smile. Roger came in around 4, asked how the day went. Fine, I said. Thermal camera failed during the Kemp cremation. Heat sensors too. Both at once? Yeah. He frowned. That's expensive. I'll call service tomorrow. He looked at me, You okay? You look pale. I wanted to tell him what I'd seen, the face, the smile in the ashes. But what would I say? That a thermal camera showed me something impossible? That ash formed a pattern that couldn't form naturally? I'm fine, I said. Just tired. He nodded. Left. I finished processing Patricia Kemp's remains. Placed them in the urn the family had selected. Cleaned the equipment. Locked up. But I couldn't leave. I went back to the control station. Tried to recover the thermal camera footage. We record everything. State requirement. All cremations documented from start to finish. The file was corrupted. 40 minutes of footage from Patricia Kemp's cremation. Gone. Unrecoverable. Just blank data. Like it had never been recorded. I sat there in the empty crematorium, looking at the dead thermal camera, at the corrupted file, at the photo on my phone showing that smile in the ashes. And I understood something. Patricia Kemp had seen me. Not her body, not random heat patterns. Her. Some part of her that remained conscious, that existed in the flames, that formed itself into a face on the thermal camera and looked directly at me and smiled. Because she knew I could see her, knew I was watching, knew that for those 40 minutes, she wasn't alone in that chamber. I went home. Didn't sleep. Just lay in bed thinking about what happens during cremation, about consciousness, about whether something persists at 1600 degrees, about whether the dead are aware during those 2 hours while their bodies burn. The next morning I called Roger, told him I quit. He tried to talk me out of it, asked what happened, asked if it was the equipment failures. I didn't tell him the truth. Just said I needed a change, needed different work. He was disappointed but understood. Said he'd give me a good reference, said I could come back if I changed my mind. But I won't go back. Because I can't unsee that face. Can't forget the way it looked at me, the way it smiled. Can't stop wondering about all the other cremations I've done. 7 years, hundreds of bodies. And maybe all of them were conscious. Maybe all of them were aware. Maybe they all saw me watching through the viewing port and couldn't tell me. Couldn't form a face on the thermal camera. Couldn't smile in the ashes. Maybe Patricia Kemp was the only one strong enough. The only one who could reach through the fire and say, I'm here. I'm still here. I see you seeing me. I work at a hardware store now. Sell garden supplies and paint. Normal work. Work where nothing watches you, nothing smiles at you from places where nothing should be able to smile. But sometimes I think about Patricia Kemp, about what she wanted, about whether that smile was friendly or something else, about whether she was grateful to be seen or angry about what was happening to her. I researched her obituary, found out she'd been a photographer, spent 40 years taking portraits, thousands of faces, thousands of people looking at her through a camera lens while she looked back at them. Maybe that's why she could do it. Maybe she understood cameras, understood lenses, understood how to make herself visible even when she shouldn't be. Or maybe everyone can do it. Maybe they're all there, all conscious, all watching us from inside the flames. And we just don't have the right equipment to see them. Don't have the sensitivity. Don't pay close enough attention. The service company came out 2 days after I quit. Roger told me later they couldn't explain the failures. Said the thermal camera was fried from the inside out. Said the heat sensors had experienced simultaneous catastrophic failure. Said it shouldn't have happened. Said the equipment had been functioning perfectly that morning. Said it was like something had burned them out. Deliberately. From inside the retort. Roger hired a new tech, a younger guy, eager, experienced. He's been there 3 weeks now, I wonder if he watches the thermal camera. I wonder if he'll see a face someday. I wonder if he'll recognize it for what it is, or if he'll do what I should have done. What any rational person would do, convince himself it was nothing. Equipment malfunction, random pattern, coincidence. Keep working, keep processing, keep watching bodies burn, and never admit, not even to himself, that sometimes they watch back, that sometimes they smile, that sometimes they want you to know they're still there. Still conscious, still aware while the fire consumes them. Still themselves, right up until the end, and maybe even after. I've been a groundskeeper at Riverside Memorial Gardens in Baton Rouge for 11 years. Started right out of high school. Needed a job. Liked working outdoors. The cemetery business isn't glamorous, but it's steady. Reliable. You mow, you trim, you maintain. The work is simple. The dead don't complain. I handle the northern sections, 40 acres of lawn, headstones, and live oaks. Section K is the children's area. Small graves, angel statues, toys left by visiting families. It's the quietest part of the cemetery. Most people avoid it. Too sad. Too hard to look at all those dates. Born and died within years of each other. Sometimes months, sometimes days. I mow Section K every Wednesday morning, early, before the heat sets in, before families start arriving. It was a Wednesday in late May when I heard it. I'd started mowing at 6:30 a.m. The sun was just coming up. That soft golden light that makes everything look peaceful. No visitors yet. Just me and the mower and the rows of small headstones. I was working the eastern edge near a cluster of graves from the 80s when I heard singing. Soft, musical, a child's voice. I figured it was my radio. I keep it clipped to my belt. Classic country station. Sometimes they play old songs, nostalgic stuff. I didn't think much of it. But then I realized the voice wasn't coming from the radio. It was coming from somewhere else, somewhere nearby. I slowed the mower. The engine noise decreased. The singing got clearer. A lullaby. Simple melody. No words, just humming. The tune you'd sing to a baby, the kind every mother knows. I stopped the mower completely. Turned off the engine. The cemetery went silent, except for birds and that soft humming. It was coming from the ground, from one of the graves. I stood there, listening. The humming continued, gentle, rhythmic, a child's voice, maybe 4 or 5 years old. That high, sweet pitch that sounds almost like music itself. I looked at the graves around me, 5 small headstones, 3 from 1982, 2 from 1985, all children under 6 years old. The humming was coming from the one directly in front of me, a pink granite headstone, heart-shaped, with a carved angel on top. Emily Rose Fontenot, January 12, 1981, August 3, 1985. Our little angel. 4 years old when she died. The grave was decorated with a small teddy bear, faded plastic flowers, a pinwheel that spun slowly in the morning breeze. And from beneath that grave, from the earth itself, came that lullaby. I backed away. My heart was pounding. I looked around. Maybe someone was playing a prank. Maybe there was a speaker hidden somewhere. Maybe. But Section K was empty. No visitors, no other workers. Just me and the graves and that impossible singing. I turned to my radio, turned it off completely, pulled out the batteries. Silence. The humming continued. I grabbed my phone, pulled up the audio recorder, hit record, held it toward the grave. The humming stopped. Complete silence. Just birds, just wind, just the normal sounds of a cemetery morning. I stood there for maybe 5 minutes, waiting, listening, nothing. I put my phone away, started to walk back to the mower. The humming started again, softer now, farther away, like it was retreating deeper into the earth. Then it faded completely. Gone. I got on the mower, started the engine. The loud rumble felt reassuring, normal, real. I finished mowing Section K as fast as I could. Didn't stop, didn't look back at Emily Rose Fontenot's grave. But I couldn't stop thinking about it, about that voice, about how clear it had been, about how it had come from underground. I went to my supervisor, a man named Curtis Babineau, 26 years at Riverside. He'd heard everything, seen everything. If anyone would understand, it would be Curtis. I heard something weird in Section K, I said. He looked up from his paperwork. Weird how? Singing, a child singing, coming from one of the graves. Curtis didn't laugh, didn't dismiss it, just nodded slowly. Which grave? Emily Fontenot, 1985. He was quiet for a moment. Then, you want to go back and check it out? With someone else there? Yeah. We went together, 2 of us. Curtis brought his radio. I brought mine. We walked to Section K, to Emily Rose Fontenot's grave. The morning had warmed up. It was almost 9. Families would start arriving soon. The cemetery had come alive with normal sounds, traffic from the road, birds in the trees, a lawn service working in Section C. We stood at Emily's grave, listened. Nothing, just normal sounds. No humming, no lullaby. Maybe you heard a visitor, Curtis said. Someone singing to their child. At 6:30 in the morning, in Section K? People come at all hours, especially parents. I checked. Nobody was here. And the voice came from underground, from the grave itself. Curtis knelt down, looked at the headstone, at the grass around it. His expression changed. When did you last mow this section? Last Wednesday, a week ago. And you were mowing this morning when you heard the singing? Yeah, why? He ran his hand over the grass. This hasn't been mowed. I looked. He was right. The grass around Emily's grave was short, perfectly trimmed, but not by me, not this morning. I hadn't reached this spot yet when I heard the singing and stopped. And the grass around the other graves, the ones I had mowed last week, had grown, maybe 2 inches. Normal growth for a week in Louisiana heat. But Emily's grave looked freshly mowed, like someone had trimmed it yesterday, or that morning. That's impossible, I said. Grass grows. It doesn't stay the same length for a week. Curtis stood up, looked at the surrounding graves, looked back at Emily's. Maybe someone else mowed it. Family member with a trimmer. Without permission? That's against cemetery policy. People do it anyway. They want their child's grave to look perfect. But I'd been working this cemetery for 11 years. I knew which families maintained graves themselves. The Fontenots weren't one of them. Emily's grave got the standard treatment. Mowing once a week. That's it. Curtis made notes, said he'd check the visitor logs, see if anyone had been in Section K early that morning. But I knew they wouldn't find anything, because nobody had mowed that grave. The grass had simply stopped growing. had stayed the perfect length, like something underneath was keeping it that way. I went back to work, finished my route. But I kept thinking about Emily Rose Fontenot, about how she died in 1985, about how she'd been 4 years old, about how that humming had sounded exactly like a 4-year-old child singing a lullaby. I looked her up in the parish records that night, found her obituary. Emily Rose Fontenot, age 4, passed away peacefully August 3, 1985, at Our Lady of the Lake Hospital after a brief illness. She loved singing, painting, and making her family laugh. She is survived by her parents, Robert and Marie Fontenot, and her baby brother, James. She loved singing. I called the funeral home that had handled her service, asked if they had any records. The director, an older woman who'd been there since the 70s, remembered the Fontenots. "Sad case," she said. "Leukemia. Emily fought hard. Made it almost a year after diagnosis. Her mother used to sing to her in the hospital. A lullaby. Every night. Said it was the only thing that helped Emily sleep." "Do you know the tune?" She hummed a few bars. Simple, gentle. The same lullaby I'd heard coming from the grave. I didn't go back to Section K for 2 weeks. Traded routes with another groundskeeper. Told Curtis I needed a change of scenery. He understood, didn't ask questions. But eventually, I had to return. Couldn't avoid it forever. Section K was my responsibility. It was a Wednesday again. Early morning. Same time as before. 6:30, golden light, quiet cemetery. I started mowing. Worked my way through the rows. Got to Emily Rose Fontenot's grave. The grass was still short, perfectly trimmed. Like it had been 2 weeks ago. Like it hadn't grown at all. I stopped the mower, turned off the engine, listened. Nothing. Just birds, just wind, just silence. I knelt beside her headstone, looked at the angel carved on top, at her name, at those dates that told the story of a life that barely began. "I heard you," I said quietly. "I heard you singing." The cemetery stayed silent. No humming, no lullaby, nothing. I stood up, started the mower, began to move on to the next row. Then I heard it, faint, almost lost in the engine noise. But there. I turned off the mower. The humming continued. Stronger now, clearer. That same lullaby, that same child's voice, coming from Emily's grave. But this time I didn't run, didn't panic, I just listened. Because I understood now what I hadn't understood before. Emily wasn't haunting this place, wasn't trapped here. She was being remembered. Every Wednesday morning, when I mowed, when I came to her grave, when someone, anyone, acknowledged she'd been here, that she'd existed, that she'd loved singing. She sang back, to let us know she still remembered too. The humming lasted maybe 30 seconds, then faded, gentle, peaceful, like a child falling asleep. The grass around her grave stayed short, perfect, untouched by time or growth, like the earth itself was keeping it neat for her. Like even nature wanted Emily's grave to look beautiful. I still work at Riverside Memorial Gardens, still mow Section K every Wednesday morning, still stop at Emily Rose Fontenot's grave. The humming doesn't happen every time. Sometimes weeks go by without hearing it, sometimes months. But when it does come, soft and gentle from beneath the earth, I stop. I listen. I let her finish her lullaby. And the grass around her grave stays perfect. Never grows, never needs mowing. Just stays exactly the same length week after week, month after month, year after year. Curtis retired last spring. Before he left, he pulled me aside. I heard her too, he said, 20 years ago. When I used to mow Section K, that same singing, that same grave. Why didn't you tell me? Because some things you have to hear for yourself. Some things you have to understand on your own. What is it? Why does she sing? Curtis smiled, sad but peaceful. Her mother sang to her every night in the hospital. For a year. Through all the treatments, all the pain, that lullaby was the last thing Emily heard before she died. Her mother was singing it when she took her last breath. So she's repeating it? Stuck in that moment? No. Curtis shook his head. She's singing it back. She's letting her mother know she still hears it. That she's still listening, that she remembers. Her mother visits? Every Wednesday morning, early, before most people arrive. She sits at Emily's grave for a few minutes. Doesn't bring flowers. Doesn't bring toys. Just sits. Quiet. Remembering. I'd never seen anyone at Emily's grave on Wednesday mornings. But I started my route at the far end of Section K. By the time I reached Emily's area, it was usually 45 minutes into my shift. The next Wednesday, I started at Emily's grave. Got there at 6:30, before I began mowing. A woman sat on the grass beside the pink granite headstone. Maybe 60 years old. Gray hair, simple clothes, hands folded in her lap. She sat in silence, just being there, just being with her daughter. I waited. Didn't start the mower, didn't interrupt. After about 10 minutes, she stood, touched the angel on top of the headstone, whispered something I couldn't hear, then walked to her car and left. I started mowing. When I reached Emily's grave, I stopped, turned off the engine, listened. The humming came immediately, clear, beautiful. Mm-mm-mm-mm. A child singing to her mother, across 40 years, across death itself, letting her know, I'm still here. I still remember. I still hear you. The grass around Emily Rose Fontenot's grave hasn't grown in 11 years, hasn't needed mowing since long before I started working here. Because some love is strong enough to stop time, strong enough to reach through earth and death and loss, strong enough to keep singing forever, every Wednesday morning, when mothers remember, when daughters sing back, when the grass stays perfect and short and beautiful. Because even the earth knows some graves deserve special care. I've cleaned headstones at Oaklawn Cemetery in Mobile for 6 years. It's maintenance work, simple work. You scrub away algae, lichen, bird droppings. You restore weathered granite and marble. Make the names readable again. Give the dead back their dignity. Most stones are old. 19th century, early 20th. The newer sections don't need much cleaning. Modern granite holds up better. But the historic areas, where stones date back to the 1850s, that's where I spend most of my time. I work alone, early mornings, before the cemetery opens to visitors. Just me in a cart full of brushes, cleaners, and water. Quiet work. Meditative work. The kind where your mind wanders while your hands stay busy. It was a Tuesday in September when I saw my name. I was working Section F, the oldest part of Oaklawn, stones so weathered you could barely read them. I'd been cleaning a row of monuments from the 1870s, taking my time, being careful not to damage the soft marble. I moved to the next stone, a simple marker, maybe 3 feet tall, gray granite, heavily stained with lichen. I started scrubbing. The chemical cleaner worked slowly. The green growth came away in patches. Letters appeared beneath, one by one. First a B, then an O, then a U. Boudreaux, my last name. I stopped scrubbing, stared at the stone. My hands had gone numb. It couldn't be right. Boudreaux isn't a common name, but it's not unique. Plenty of Boudreaux in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. Probably dozens buried in Mobile over the years. I kept cleaning. More letters appeared. James Boudreaux. My first name, my full name. James Boudreaux. My chest got tight. I backed away from the stone, looked around. The cemetery was empty. Just me and the morning mist and the rows of silent graves. I stepped closer. Read the dates beneath the name. Born March 15th, 1988. My birthday. My exact birthday. The death date was covered in lichen, still hidden. I should have cleaned it. Should have kept going, should have seen what it said. But I couldn't. My hands were shaking too hard. My breath came too fast. I left the stone, moved to the next one, started cleaning a different marker, tried to focus on the work, tried to convince myself I'd misread, that the name had said something else, that I'd been working too long in the sun. But I kept glancing back, at that gray granite stone with my name on it, at those dates that matched mine exactly. After 20 minutes, I walked back, made myself look, made myself read it again. The name had changed. Not my name anymore. Different now. Jacob Boudreaux. Different spelling, different first name, close but not the same. And the dates were different too. Born March 17th, 1886. 1886, not 1988. Not my birthday, not my name, just similar. I scrubbed the death date. It appeared slowly. Died October 2nd, 1932. I stood there for maybe 5 minutes, trying to understand, trying to remember what I'd seen, what I'd read. But memory is unreliable, especially when you're tired, when you've been staring at weathered stone all morning. I convinced myself I'd misread, that my mind had filled in familiar patterns, that I'd seen what I expected to see instead of what was actually there. I finished the stone, moved on to the next. Didn't mention it to anyone. What would I say? That I'd hallucinated my own name on a gravestone? That I'd imagined my birthday carved in stone from the 1870s? People would think I was losing it, or looking for attention, or cracking under the monotony of the work. So I said nothing, filed it away, tried to forget. But a week later, my supervisor called. A man named Philip Greer. He handled scheduling, assignments, family contacts. James, we've got a new burial coming in. Saturday morning, Section F. Okay. You need me to prep the site? Already done, but I wanted to give you a heads up. The name on the work order is Boudreaux. Thought you might want to know, in case family members ask questions. People sometimes assume we're related to everyone with the same last name. Something cold moved through my chest. What's the first name? Hold on. Papers rustling. Jacob Boudreaux, 78 years old. Died Tuesday. Tuesday. Today was Tuesday. He'd died today. When did the family place the order? I asked. My voice sounded distant, not mine. Let me check. More rustling. Death certificate came through this morning, but the burial plot was purchased years ago, 1932, pre-need arrangement. Been sitting empty for almost a century. 1932. The death date I'd seen on that stone last week, when it had said Jacob Boudreaux instead of James Boudreaux. Which plot? I asked. Section F, row 12, plot 7. Why? I knew that plot. I'd cleaned that stone last Tuesday. The one where I'd seen my name, where I'd seen my birthday, where the dates had changed when I looked away. "No reason," I said. "Just wanted to know where it is." I hung up, sat at my workbench in the maintenance shed, staring at nothing, trying to process. The stone had shown my name, my birthday, then changed to Jacob Boudreau, born 1886, died 1932. And now, today, exactly 1 week later, a man named Jacob Boudreau had died. Was being buried in that exact plot, the plot I'd been cleaning when I saw my name. It wasn't possible. Names don't change on headstones. Stone doesn't rewrite itself. Future burials don't announce themselves by temporarily showing the wrong name. But I'd seen it. I knew what I'd read. James Boudreau, born March 15th, 1988. My name, my birthday. And now Jacob Boudreau was dead. Being buried in that plot, 1 week after I'd seen his name appear on the stone. I went to Section F that afternoon, found row 12, plot 7, the stone I'd cleaned last Tuesday. It looked different now. The lichen I'd removed hadn't grown back. That takes years. But the stone itself looked newer, cleaner, like it had been recently carved. The name was clear, sharp. Jacob Boudreau, born March 17th, 1886. Died October 2nd, 1932. But underneath, in smaller letters, was something I hadn't noticed before. Something I'd missed in my panic last week. Awaiting his rest. Awaiting his rest, like the stone had been waiting. Like it knew someone was coming. Like it had been ready for 92 years for Jacob Boudreau to finally arrive. The burial happened Saturday morning. I wasn't assigned to work it. But I came anyway. Stood at a distance. Watched the family gather. Small service. Maybe 15 people. An elderly woman who must have been his wife. Some younger people. Grandchildren, maybe. The casket was lowered. The family left. The burial crew filled the grave. I waited until everyone was gone. Then walked to the fresh grave. The dirt was still loose. Dark. Wet from overnight rain. I knelt beside it. Looked at the headstone. At Jacob Boudreau's name. At his dates. And I wondered, had that stone shown me my name because I was meant to see it? Because I needed to know Jacob was coming? Because something about cleaning that stone, reading those dates, made his death possible? Or had it shown me my name first, James Boudreau, born 1988, and then changed because I wasn't meant to be buried there yet? Because seeing my own name on a gravestone had somehow altered something, shifted something? I started researching, spent hours in the cemetery archives, looking for other Boudreaux, other Boudreau variations. Found 12, all buried in Oaklawn over the past 160 years. But none named James. None born in 1988. None with dates that matched mine. Which meant that stone hadn't been showing me someone else's grave. It had been showing me mine. My future grave. My death date, which I hadn't seen, which I'd been too afraid to clean, which had stayed hidden under lichen. Until it changed, until Jacob Boudreau's name replaced mine. Until his death date, October 2nd, 1932, appeared where mine should have been. I went back to Section F every day that week, checked the stone, looked for changes, waited to see if my name would appear again. It never did. Jacob Boudreau's name stayed constant, his dates unchanged. The stone looked like it had been carved 92 years ago and freshly installed at the same time. Weathered but sharp, old but new. My supervisor asked if I was okay, said I looked tired, said maybe I needed a break from the cemetery work. Too much time alone with the dead isn't healthy. I told him I was fine. Just wanted to make sure the new burial was settling properly. That the grave was stable. Professional concern. Nothing more. But I kept going back, kept checking, because I needed to understand. 2 weeks after Jacob's burial, I was cleaning stones in Section F again. Same area, same row. I'd worked my way down to Plot 9, 2 graves away from Jacob Boudreau. I started scrubbing. The cleaner worked quickly on this one. Newer granite, less weathered. The name appeared almost immediately. James Boudreau. My hands froze. I stared at the letters, at my name, appearing again on a different stone. I kept cleaning, desperate now, needing to see the dates, needing to know. Born March 15th, 1988. My birthday. My exact birthday. On a different stone, in a different plot. I scrubbed the death date. The lichen came away slowly, one number at a time. Died September 24th, 2024. Today's date. Today, right now. This moment. I stumbled backward, dropped my brush. The chemical cleaner splashed on my boots. I looked around. The cemetery was empty. Early morning, no visitors, no workers, just me. Just me and a gravestone with my name. My birthday. And today's date as my death. I blinked, looked back at the stone. The name had changed. Jacob Boudreau. Different stone now, different plot, but the same substitution. My name replaced by his. But the dates. Born March 17th, 1886. Died October 2nd, 1932. Jacob's dates. On a stone 2 plots away from where he was actually buried. In a plot that should be empty. That has always been empty. I checked the cemetery records that afternoon. Section F, row 12, plot 9. No burial, no purchase, no name. Empty since Oaklawn opened in 1854. But I'd seen a stone there. I'd cleaned it. I'd read my name on it. My death date. Today's death date. And then it had changed. Become Jacob Boudreau instead. Again, I quit the next morning. Told Philip I needed to move. Family emergency. Had to leave Mobile. He understood. Said he'd give me a reference, but before I left, I went to Section F one last time. Checked both stones, Jacob's actual grave in Plot 7, and the empty Plot 9, where I'd seen my name appear. Plot 7 looked normal. Jacob Boudreau, buried, real, permanent. Plot 9 was empty, just grass, no stone, no marker, nothing, like it had never been there, like I'd imagined the whole thing. But I know what I saw. I saw my name, twice, on 2 different stones, with my birthday, with death dates that kept changing, that kept being replaced by Jacob Boudreau. Like the cemetery was trying to tell me something. Like the stones were showing me possibilities, futures that could happen, deaths that were scheduled but not yet fixed. And Jacob Boudreau kept taking my place, kept dying instead of me, kept appearing on stones where my name had been moments before. I left Mobile, moved to Atlanta, got a job in landscaping. Normal work, no cemeteries, no headstones, no names that change when you're not looking. But sometimes I wonder about those stones, about Plot 9 that's still empty, about whether my name appears there now that I'm gone. Whether it's waiting for me to come back. Whether there's a death date carved in stone somewhere with my name on it that just hasn't happened yet. Whether Jacob Boudreau saved me. Twice. By dying when he did. By being buried in Section F exactly when those stones showed my name. by replacing me at the last moment, or whether I saved myself by seeing the warning, by reading my name before the death date was fully revealed, by looking away before the future became fixed. I don't know. I'll probably never know. But I don't clean headstones anymore. Don't read names carved in stone. Don't look too closely at graves that haven't been filled yet. Because some things are written before they happen. Some names appear before their time. Some deaths are scheduled in stone. And sometimes, if you're lucky, someone else's name replaces yours before the date arrives. Before the stone stops changing. Before the future becomes permanent. Before you run out of time to look away. I've been a forensic cleaner in Houston for 8 years. Biohazard remediation is what we call it officially. Crime scenes, suicides, unattended deaths, anywhere there's blood, tissue, or bodily fluids that need professional removal. It's not work most people can handle, but someone has to do it. You learn to detach. You focus on the technical aspects, surface cleaning, decontamination, proper disposal. You don't think about the person. Don't imagine their last moments. Don't let yourself feel the weight of what happened in these spaces. Most of the time, that works. Most of the time. The call came on a Wednesday morning in July. Unattended death. Third-floor apartment in Montrose. The body had been discovered by the landlord after neighbors complained about the smell. Medical examiner estimated the deceased had been dead approximately 35 days. 35 days in Houston's summer heat. That meant decomposition would be advanced. That meant the scene would be difficult. But I'd handled worse. I arrived at the building around 9 a.m. My partner for the job was a newer tech named Vanessa Cruz. 6 months with the company. Good worker, detail-oriented, not squeamish. The landlord met us at the entrance. Middle-aged man, looked tired, looked sick. He'd been the one to find the body. Third floor, apartment 3C. Police released it yesterday. I need it cleaned before I can rent it again. Power still on? I asked. Shut off 5 weeks ago. Non-payment. That's how I knew something was wrong. Tenant never missed rent before. Then nothing. No calls. No contact. 5 weeks without power in July. That explained the condition we'd find. We took the stairs. The building was old, maybe from the 60s. Narrow hallways, window units for air conditioning. The kind of place where everyone hears everyone else through thin walls. The smell hit us on the third-floor landing. Sweet, thick, unmistakable. The smell of decomposition. Even through our respirators, it was strong. Apartment 3C was at the end of the hall. The door had been left open by the medical examiner's team. A notice posted on the frame, Biohazard, authorized personnel only. We suited up. Full Tyvek suits. Double gloves, respirators, booties, everything sealed. Standard protocol for this type of scene. I pushed the door open wider. The smell intensified. The apartment was small. Studio layout, kitchen area to the right, living space straight ahead. Bedroom alcove to the left. The windows were closed, blinds drawn. Even in daylight, the apartment was dim, hot, airless. The body had been in the bedroom. I could see the outline on the floor where it had lain, dark staining on the carpet. Decomposition fluids had soaked through to the subfloor. We'd have to remove the carpet, treat the concrete, maybe seal it. Let's start with documentation, I said. Photographs, measurements. Then we'll begin removal. Vanessa pulled out the camera, started photographing the scene. I walked through the apartment, checking for additional contamination, looking for anything the police might have missed. That's when I heard it. A low hum, steady, mechanical, like a refrigerator motor, like an air conditioning compressor, the kind of white noise you don't notice until it stops. I paused, listened. The sound was constant, coming from the bedroom area. "You hear that?" I asked Vanessa. She lowered the camera. "Hear what?" "That humming." She listened, shook her head. "I don't hear anything." I walked toward the bedroom. The humming got louder, definitely mechanical, definitely coming from that direction. I checked the window unit. Not running, not plugged in. The fridge in the kitchen area was empty, door open, not functioning. The power was off. Had been off for weeks. Nothing should be humming. But the sound continued. Low, steady, persistent. "There," I said. "You must hear it now." Vanessa came closer, tilted her head. "Yeah, I hear it. What is that?" "I don't know. Check the electrical panel. Make sure the power's really off." She went to the panel by the door, opened it. Main breaker's off. Everything's disconnected. But the humming continued. Louder now, almost vibrating through the floor. I knelt beside the decomposition stain. The carpet was crusty, dark brown, stiff with dried fluids. I'd need to cut it out, remove it in sections, bag it for hazmat disposal. I pulled out my utility knife, started cutting around the stain. The moment the blade touched the carpet, the humming increased in volume. Not by much, but noticeably. Like whatever was making the sound had responded to my action. I kept cutting. The humming got louder. Steady rhythm, low frequency. The kind of sound you feel in your chest more than hear. Vanessa was watching from the kitchen area. "It's getting louder." "I know." I finished cutting the perimeter. Started peeling back the carpet. The pad underneath was saturated, black. Smelling worse than the surface. I'd have to remove that too. The humming intensified. Now it was loud enough that I couldn't ignore it. Loud enough that it dominated the space. Like standing next to machinery. Like being inside an engine. "Where is that coming from?" Vanessa asked. Her voice was tight, nervous. I looked around the bedroom. No appliances, no electronics, nothing that could generate that sound. Especially nothing that could run without power. I pulled up more carpet, more pad. The humming got louder with each section I removed. Like I was uncovering it. Like the source was underneath. "Maybe it's the building," Vanessa said. "HVAC system, plumbing." "The whole building doesn't have one system. These are individual units." I removed the last section of carpet, exposed the concrete subfloor. The stain had soaked through. Dark, penetrated deep into the porous concrete. We'd need enzyme treatment, multiple applications. The humming was almost deafening now, vibrating, resonating through the floor, through my knees, through my chest. And the concrete was warm. Not Houston summer warm. Not ambient temperature. Body warm. Like something underneath was generating heat. Like something alive was pressed against the other side. I put my gloved hand flat on the concrete. Felt the vibration. Felt the warmth radiating up. "Vanessa, feel this." She came over, knelt down, put her hand on the floor. Her eyes went wide. "That's not normal." "No, it's not." The humming was so loud now I could barely think. Like standing inside a transformer. Like being too close to heavy machinery. My respirator couldn't filter out sound. My ears were ringing with it. I stood up. Backed away from the exposed floor. The moment I stepped off the concrete, The humming decreased. Not stopped, just quieter, like it had been before we started working. Vanessa stood up too. We looked at each other, both thinking the same thing, both not wanting to say it. "We need to check something," I said. We went downstairs, found the landlord in the office. He looked up when we entered. "Problem? When was the power disconnected?" I asked. 5 weeks ago, beginning of June." "You're sure?" "Positive. I handle it personally when tenants don't pay. Coordinate with the utility company. It was disconnected June 2nd. Today was July 10th. 38 days. Almost exactly how long the medical examiner estimated the tenant had been dead." "And the tenant," I said. "What was his name?" The landlord pulled up a file on his computer. "Gerald Matsuda. Lived here 3 years, quiet, paid on time, then just stopped. Nobody saw him. Nobody heard from him. When I finally got the warrant to enter, I found him in the bedroom, on the floor. Medical examiner said, heart attack." "Did he live alone?" "Yeah. No family. No visitors that anyone saw." We went back upstairs, back to apartment 3C. The humming was still there. Quieter now, background level, but constant. We stood in the bedroom, looking at the exposed concrete, at the dark stain where Gerald Matsuda had died. "What do we do?" Vanessa asked. "We finish the job. We clean. We decontaminate. We do what we're paid to do." But I didn't move. Didn't start working. Just stood there, listening to that impossible humming, coming from a floor that shouldn't be warm, powered by electricity that didn't exist, generated by something that wasn't there. We worked for 4 hours, scraped, scrubbed, applied enzyme cleaners, removed contaminated materials, bagged everything for disposal, professional, thorough, exactly as we'd been trained. The humming continued the entire time, got louder when we worked on the stain, quieter when we moved away, but never stopped, never changed rhythm, just that steady, mechanical pulse. By 2 p.m., we'd finished. The apartment was clean, the contaminated materials removed, the floor treated, ready for new carpet, ready for a new tenant. But the humming remained, slightly quieter now, but there, definitely there. I checked the concrete one more time before we left. Put my hand on the spot where Gerald Matsuda had lain for 35 days, where his body had decomposed, where his fluids had soaked into the floor, still warm, still vibrating, still humming. We packed our equipment, sealed the hazmat bags, prepared to leave. At the door, I stopped, looked back at the apartment, at that empty bedroom alcove where something hummed without power, where something generated heat without source, where something persisted after everything else had stopped. "Should we tell someone?" Vanessa asked. "Tell them what? That we heard a sound we can't explain? That a concrete floor was warm for no reason? It's not normal. Nothing about this job is normal." We left, closed the door, stripped out of our contaminated suits in the hallway. Loaded everything into the van. I filed the completion report that afternoon, noted the extent of contamination, listed the materials removed, detailed the decontamination process. Everything standard, everything professional. I didn't mention the humming, didn't mention the warmth. What would I say? How would I explain it? But I called the landlord the next day, asked if he'd rented the apartment yet. "Not yet," he said. "Had someone look at it yesterday. They said it was clean, but they didn't take it." "Did they say why?" Pause. Then, said it felt weird. Said something about the bedroom didn't seem right. I asked what they meant. They couldn't explain. Just said they didn't want to live there. 3 more people viewed the apartment over the next week. None of them took it. The landlord called me, asked if I was sure we'd cleaned everything, asked if there was still contamination. "It's clean," I said. "We did everything required. The apartment is safe." "Then why won't anyone rent it?" I didn't answer, because I knew why. Because anyone who spent time in that bedroom would hear what we heard, would feel what we felt, would know something was wrong, even if they couldn't name it. I looked up Gerald Matsuda's obituary, found a brief notice. No service, no memorial, no family listed. Just his name, his dates, and one line, "Died alone at home." 35 days alone. 35 days decomposing. 35 days without power, without light, without anyone knowing he was gone. Maybe that's what we heard. Maybe that's what generated the humming. Not electricity, not machinery, but loneliness, isolation. The sound of someone who died unnoticed, whose absence made no difference, whose body was discovered only because the rent stopped coming. Maybe that sound will hum in that apartment forever. A low mechanical pulse. The frequency of someone who lived and died and was forgotten, who lay there for 5 weeks before anyone cared enough to check. I still do forensic cleaning, still handle unattended deaths, still clean scenes where people died alone and weren't found for days or weeks. But I listen differently now. For sounds that shouldn't exist. For warmth that has no source. For the evidence of absence. For the noise that loneliness makes when it soaks into concrete and hums at a frequency only the dead can generate. Gerald Matsuda's apartment is still vacant. 6 months later. The landlord eventually stopped trying to rent it. Said he'd use it for storage. But I know the real reason. Because the humming never stopped. Because the floor stayed warm. Because some deaths leave more than stains. They leave sounds, frequencies. Vibrations that persist long after the body's gone. Long after the power's been shut off. Long after anyone remembers the person who died there. The sound of being forgotten, humming forever in an empty room. I've led a forensic cleaning crew in suburban Chicago for 14 years. Trauma scenes, violent deaths, suicides, homicides. I've seen blood on every surface imaginable. Walls, floors, furniture, windows. You learn the patterns. Learn how blood travels. Learn what's possible and what isn't. The Keller house broke every rule I knew. The call came on a Tuesday in October. Violent death in a residential property in Naperville. Police had cleared the scene. Medical examiner had removed the body. Family wanted the house cleaned and ready for sale. Standard job. Tragic but routine. My crew arrived at 8 a.m. Me, 2 techs, Angela Reeves and Marco Santos. Both experienced, both professional. We'd worked together for years. We knew how to handle difficult scenes. The house was small, single story, ranch style from the 70s. Quiet suburban neighborhood, neat lawns, good schools, the kind of place where violent death feels especially wrong. The police report said the victim, a man named Todd Keller, age 41, had died from a gunshot wound to the head, self-inflicted, found by his wife when she came home from work. The living room was the primary scene. We entered through the front door. The smell hit immediately. Blood. Decomposition. The house had been closed up for 3 days. Even in October, that creates problems. The living room was to the right. We could see the evidence before we entered. Blood spatter on the couch, on the coffee table, on the carpet, tissue, bone fragments. The pattern consistent with what the report described. But something was wrong. Something felt off. I couldn't identify it immediately, just an instinct. a sense that the scene didn't match what I expected. We suited up, full protective equipment, started documentation, photographs, measurements, identifying all contaminated surfaces, building our cleaning plan. Angela was photographing the spatter pattern when she stopped. Looked up. Her face went still. "Boss, you need to see this." I followed her gaze to the ceiling, directly above where the body had been found. A handprint. Clear. Distinct. 5 fingers, palm, complete, made of blood. But it was upside down, fingers pointing toward the wall, palm toward the center of the room, like someone had pressed their hand against the ceiling while hanging upside down. And it was at least 9 feet up. The ceiling was standard height, maybe 8.5 feet. The handprint was near the center, too far from any wall to reach without a ladder. Too high for anyone to touch even jumping. "How did that get there?" Marco asked. I studied it. The print was detailed. You could see ridge patterns, individual finger marks. This wasn't a smear, wasn't an accidental brush. Someone had pressed their full hand deliberately against that ceiling. "Check the scene photos from the police," I said. Angela pulled them up on her tablet, scrolled through, found images of the ceiling. The handprint was there. The police had documented it, photographed it. But no explanation in their notes. No mention of how it was possible. "Maybe he fell," Marco said. "Reached up. Blood on his hand transferred. He'd have to be standing on something. Tall ladder. And he'd have to fall and shoot himself at exactly the same moment. Doesn't make sense." "Then how?" I didn't have an answer. Blood doesn't defy gravity. Hands don't reach ceilings without assistance. But the print was there. Real. Documented. Impossible. "We clean it," I said. "That's the job. We clean everything, including that." We set up the ladder. I climbed up, got close to the handprint. It was fresh, still slightly wet at the edges. The blood hadn't fully dried even after 3 days, like it was being maintained, kept viable. I applied blood solvent, wiped carefully. The print came off easily, too easily. Usually dried blood requires scrubbing, requires effort. This wiped clean like it had been applied minutes ago. I cleaned the entire area, made sure no residue remained, came down the ladder, looked up. The ceiling was clean, white, no evidence of the handprint. Professional, complete. We spent 6 hours cleaning the rest of the living room. Removed the carpet, treated the subfloor, cleaned every contaminated surface. By 3 p.m., the house was ready, clean, sanitized, safe for habitation. I did a final walkthrough, checked every room, made sure we hadn't missed anything. Entered the living room last. The handprint was back. Faint, barely visible. But there, same location, same orientation, upside down, 9 feet up. Impossible. I climbed the ladder again, looked closely. The print was definitely there, lighter than before, but present, complete with ridge patterns, with individual finger detail. I cleaned it again, used stronger solvent, scrubbed harder, made absolutely certain I'd removed every trace. Came down, looked up, clean. "We good?" Angela asked. "Yeah, we're good." We packed our equipment, loaded the van. I filled out the completion paperwork. Noted the extent of contamination, listed materials removed, everything standard. I didn't mention the handprint. Didn't mention cleaning it twice. What would I write? Ceiling handprint reappeared after removal? That's not professional. That's not scientific. The family called 4 days later. The wife. Her voice was tight, scared. The living room ceiling. There's a stain, a handprint. You said you cleaned everything. We did clean everything, including the ceiling. Then why is it here? I drove to the house that afternoon. Let myself in with the key the family had provided. Went to the living room. The handprint was there. Darker now. Not faint. Fully visible. Blood red. Still upside down. Still too high to reach. But spread out more. The fingers extended longer. Like the hand had moved. Stretched. Reached further down the ceiling toward the wall. I set up the ladder. Climbed up. The print was wet. Fresh. Like it had just been applied. I touched the edge. The blood was warm. That's impossible. Blood doesn't stay warm. Not days after application. Not without a living source. I cleaned it. Third time. Used industrial strength enzyme cleaner. The kind that breaks down organic material at the molecular level. Scrubbed until my arms hurt. Until I was absolutely certain nothing remained. Climbed down. The ceiling was immaculate. Clean, white, perfect. I sat on the ladder, staring up, waiting, watching. 20 minutes later, it started. A faint discoloration. Brown, spreading from the center, forming the familiar shape. 5 fingers, palm, complete handprint. Upside down. Impossible. I called Angela, told her to come back. Bring Marco. Bring cameras. I needed witnesses, needed documentation. They arrived 40 minutes later. We stood in the living room, all 3 of us, staring at the ceiling, at the handprint that kept returning. I cleaned that 3 times, I said. It keeps coming back. That's not possible, Angela said. But she was staring at it, seeing it, knowing it was real. We need to paint over it, Marco said. Seal it. Primer, 2 coats, then sealing paint. That should cover anything. We went to the hardware store, bought premium stain-blocking primer, bought sealing paint, bought everything needed for a proper seal. We came back, set up ladders. Marco and I painted while Angela documented. We applied thick primer, made sure we covered every inch, let it dry. Applied a second coat, let that dry, then applied 2 coats of sealing paint. By 9 p.m., the ceiling looked perfect, fresh, clean, no evidence of anything underneath. That should do it, Marco said. We left, locked up. I called the wife, told her we'd sealed the stain, that it wouldn't return, that the ceiling was perfect now. She called 2 weeks later. Her voice was different, not scared anymore. Resigned. Defeated. It's back. That's not possible. We sealed it. Multiple coats, professional-grade materials. I'm looking at it right now. It came through the paint. Darker than before. The fingers are longer. They're reaching down the wall now. Toward the floor. Toward where he was. I went back. Saw it myself. The handprint had bled through 4 layers of paint. The fingers extended down the wall. Maybe 2 feet. Like the hand was reaching, searching, trying to touch something. I climbed the ladder. Mama. Put my hand near the print. Felt warmth radiating from it. Felt vibration, like something underneath was pulsing. Breathing. Living. I called the family. Told them I couldn't fix it. That this was beyond my expertise. Beyond my understanding of how blood behaves. The wife asked me if I believed in ghosts. If I thought her husband was still in the house. Still trying to communicate. I didn't know how to answer. I don't believe in supernatural explanations. I believe in science, in biology, in physics. But I'd seen that handprint reappear 4 times, seen it bleed through sealed paint, seen it spread, seen it warm and wet when it should be dry and gone. I believe something's happening that I can't explain, I said finally. I believe this house has a problem that cleaning can't fix. The family sold the house as is, disclosed the stain, the handprint, the impossible phenomenon. They took a significant loss. The buyer was an investor, someone who planned to gut the property, rebuild. I heard later they tore down the ceiling, removed the drywall, the insulation, the beams, everything. Rebuilt from scratch. New materials, new structure. Nothing from the original ceiling remained. The handprint came back anyway. On the new ceiling, same location, same orientation. Upside down. Impossible. But there. The investor abandoned the project. The house sits empty now, for sale. No takers. Everyone in the neighborhood knows about it. About the handprint that can't be cleaned. That can't be painted over. That can't be removed. I still do forensic cleaning. Still handle trauma scenes. Still deal with blood and contamination and death. But I've changed how I approach certain situations. I pay more attention to details that don't fit. Patterns that shouldn't exist. Evidence that violates rules I thought were absolute. Because the Keller house taught me something. Blood usually behaves predictably. It dries, it cleans, it follows natural laws. But sometimes, rarely but undeniably, it doesn't. Sometimes it stays warm. Sometimes it returns after removal. Sometimes it moves on its own. Spreads, reaches, searches. I researched Todd Keller after everything happened. Found out details the family hadn't shared. He'd been depressed, struggling. But the night he died, he'd called his wife, left a voicemail, said he was sorry, said he'd made a mistake, said he needed help. Please come home. Please help me. She'd been at dinner with friends, didn't check her phone, didn't get the message until hours later, until it was too late. Maybe that's what the handprint is, a last reaching, a final attempt. The motion he made when he realized what he'd done. When he tried to reverse it. When he reached up, impossibly, desperately, trying to grab something that could pull him back. That could undo the irreversible. And maybe that reach never stopped. Maybe it's still happening. Still trying. Still searching for something to grab onto. Something to change what can't be changed. I drive past that house sometimes. It's on my route to other jobs. I look at it. At the quiet suburban street. At the for sale sign that's been there for 2 years. And I think about that handprint on the ceiling. About fingers reaching down through paint and drywall and time. About desperation so strong it violates physics. About regret so deep it refuses to dry. Refuses to fade. Refuses to be cleaned away. Some stains aren't made of blood. They're made of the moment everything changed. The second you realized your mistake. The instant you reached for something you could never reach. And those stains don't clean, don't seal, don't disappear. They just keep reaching, forever, upside down and impossible, searching for a second chance that will never come.